I've cooked all sorts of Marco Pierre White recipes, from beginner things to advanced sauces to steaks, potato dishes and everything in between. Today I'm tackling one of Marco Pierre White's most intimidating recipes. This might go horribly wrong, but I'm going to go for it anyway. Is it going to work? Let's find out. We're back once again with White Heat, Marco Pierre White's masterpiece really. A beautiful book packed with stunning photography that I've talked about in other videos. But I've also talked about the recipes, and while the photography is brilliant, the recipes are not built for the home cook. And one that is the most notorious, probably associated with Marco the most, is his pig trotters. And just to be fair, it's pig trotters à la Pierre Kaufmann. Pierre Kaufmann, his mentor, when they met at Le Temps Clair and worked together, he took this dish, put a little spin on it, but largely it remains Pierre Kaufmann's dish. But Marco calls it his favourite ever meal. He enjoys it so much, he cooks it for Raymond Blanc as well.
You know, if I had to have one main course before I died tomorrow,
yeah,
it would be pig's trotter.
The methods in the recipe don't intimidate me too much, apart from one, and that's deboning the pig's trotter. So you've got braising the protein, you've got making a sauce, making a mousse, stuffing it. Those things are not too bad, but the deboning a trotter looks awful. I've watched Pierre Kaufmann do it in under a minute. I've watched Pierre Kaufmann do it, said in slow motion. Took him about 3 minutes, so he could instruct you on the BBC Maestro course. I then watched Marco do it casually in a video from 1988, and he looks like he's opening a tin of beans. But then I guess if you've got 200 you need to do to service, you get pretty good at them pretty damn fast. Let's see how I get on. So pig's trotters then, not super easy to find, but not that difficult. Mainstream supermarket here, Morrison's, stocks them, some of them. I went to 3 different Morrison's to find one, each of them referring me to the next one along. And they're dirt cheap, £2 for 2. They've been soaking overnight, just in water, nothing special. I believe to tenderise them, just to break them down a little bit. Essentially what we need to do is slash here, open them up, and then get this very hard bone out. Right, let's start by drying them off. So I'm just going to give them a little singe just to get rid of extra hairs. That's a nice thought, isn't it? Just trying to get between the knuckles is good fun, so I'm just going to, as the guy says, scrape off stray hairs with a knife. Oh yeah, that's working okay. If it's not clear, I've never worked with a pig trotter before. I'm not entirely sure I've eaten them before. Probably not. I think I'd remember. I've eaten a lot of weird stuff, but I don't think I've had pig trotters. I mean, you say weird, it's just because of that, isn't it? Everything else is just pig meat, you know, lovely gelatinous. You know, is it any really different from pork belly? You know, that lovely fatty cut that crisps up beautifully. Marco, also that famous for this recipe, put this on the menu of Hell's Kitchen when he hosted the UK version of the show where a chef hosts a restaurant for the public and made people like Jim Davidson and Paul Young work on pig's trotters.
Come on, trotter straight in. Tim.
I'd be like, right, okay, let's just stop the kitchen. Who's eating the pig's trotters?
I've put it off long enough. Here we go. So, again, I've watched Pierre in particular. Okay, I can tell this is going to be a problem already, because by God, that skin is tough. So what we're aiming to do is unwrap this, put stuffing in it, and then put it back into its shape. So therefore we don't want to tear the skin too badly when we're doing this. We're going to turn it inside out like a rubber glove and then put it back the right way. So trying to keep close to the bone as I do this. Gives you an appreciation for the repetition of a task when you see someone do this so quickly. One Christmas, I deboned a whole chicken and left it in one piece. You can watch videos of that, not me doing it, but other people. And It's not as difficult as it sounds. You just got to take your time and just work your way around the carcass. But you know, if you're interested in cooking things, go try it. It's a lot of fun. I don't know who saw a pig's trotter and thought, you know what we're going to do? We're going to get the bone out of that. It's going to be so easy. We're going to enjoy it so much. We're just going to keep doing it over and over again. Obviously in the chefing world, the restaurant world, you're looking to create something interesting. And by maintaining the shape, as Pierre did when he made this dish, it's sort of a, oh look, he's managed to make a whole pig's trotter, but stuff it with interesting things. I was hoping it would come away a little more at the moment. Pierre works with lovely long pig's trotters that are like a third as long again, so you've got something to grab hold of. You know, I literally had to choose the ones they've got. I want to give a shout out to a couple of people as I prepare this, egged me on to try this. So I'm going to give a shout out to Kieran Tracy, excellent documentary maker, who I had a chat with earlier this year. My friend Ben, who occasionally pops up in the comments, who also sort of urged me to try this. I don't believe either of them have tried it, tried making it. Then they just wanted to watch someone else suffer. Yeah, and this is just as difficult as I thought it would be. It's just very thick, very dense. I'm working on a cloth, as you can see, to try and hold it in place. What's going to happen sooner or later is I'm going to get frustrated and go through the skin. I was reading a tip from someone that after a while, your knife starts to blunt. You know, at a microscopic level, all the little fat globules are creeping into the knife, into the little tiny gaps in the knife blade. So that's the excuse I'm using there. I really do think the dish itself is, you know, the actual cooking is going to be okay. It's just this prep. I'm starting to get a slight headache just from concentrating so hard. You know when you've got a job that requires a lot of focus. Oh, that was a bit of progress. I enjoyed that. I can feel this is where I'm losing patience and I just want to rip the thing off. I swear, if I go online after this and you find there's like some ancient like Chinese cookery technique where you just kind of blanch it in hot water and the whole thing pops out, I'll be, yeah. Starting to get slightly numb in this hand because I'm grabbing it so tight. Right, I think I'm at the point where I can pop the joint out, I think. Yeah, I'm going to wash my hands so I've got some grip. And there we have it. One pork trotter. Took me about half an hour. It's a bit scrappy. I need to get rid of some cartilagey bits here. But I'm pretty sure I can tuck these under and rescue them because the top side is presentable. So thankfully the next bit is just simply simmering it in a simple mirepoix of carrot, celery and onion. So I'm just going to dice these up, get it all in the casserole, start sweating it down. So I've chopped some carrot, celery and onion. I'm just sweating that off. The cut isn't particularly fine. Marco's book says they must be cubed. Well, watching Pierre Kaufman, he's quite right. We're going to be cooking this for a very long time, so if you dice it really small, things are going to burn, things just disappear. Keeping them chunky means they can hold their shape. They've got plenty of time to give off their flavours. Right, now he says, add the trotter skin side down. Some wine. I'm just going to crank up the heat just to reduce it down a bit. I'm going to have some good old bay, because what's a Marco recipe without a bay leaf? And then Marco asks us to add some veal stock. Veal stock, incredibly difficult to get hold of. I've decided to use some of this Potts chicken stock. Not sponsored at all. I've seen it around and I thought, this looks like good stuff. So I'm just using some chicken stock. I think beef stock is too powerful for this dish. So I'm just going to add chicken stock. And it pleasingly comes in a can. That's a whole can there, 500 ml. I'm just going to bring that to the boil and then it's going to spend 3 hours in the oven. Now Marco doesn't mention this in the recipe, but I know how much he loves a cartouche, so I'm going to quickly make one. And that extra layer should just prevent extra evaporation. It's in the oven for a long time, so I don't want it going anywhere. Keep all that moisture and that juiciness in that pan. We're not actually going to use that liquor afterwards. Pierre says it's just far too strong and gelatinous. Cartilage and the pig skin, it just makes it all sort of gummy. So that's now come up to the boil. So I'm going to pop that in a hot oven, about 180, for about 3 hours. Right, so there's a few other bits to make now. A few, he says. We're going to make a filling. If you've seen my white heat steak recipe, you'll know that you go from one thing and get sent to the back of the book to just go and construct a completely new recipe. So we're going to make a stuffing, a filling for our pig's trotter. And this is where we have to have a little chat, because one of the ingredients it asks for are veal sweetbreads. Now, I can't tell you how many butchers I went to try and get sweetbreads. Not just veal sweetbreads. I mean, I accepted veal sweetbreads would be a push. But sweetbreads of any kind were impossible. There are 3 butchers near where I live. None of them would stock sweetbreads, nor would they order them in for me. I went online to several butchers who would sell them, but then would not fulfill the order. I then found a really good butcher's in the city, London, who said, I said, all right, if I pop by in a couple of days, can I get some sweetbreads? So yeah, no problem, just put an online order through and click and collect. Fine, click and collect. Oh, minimum basket, 30 quid, put 30 quid's worth of stuff in that I didn't really need, but I thought I'd have anyway. Morning of, they email me and say, sorry, we couldn't get any sweetbreads. So the whole order's cancelled. So I have tried, and I have tried, and I have tried. I am sure there are butchers out there that can stock you sweetbreads, but goodness knows I couldn't find any. Which brings me on to the fact of all these TV chefs and some YouTube people who say, oh yeah, just talk to your butcher. They'll do this for you, they'll do that for you. In my experience of cooking as a home cook, I've never found a butcher who, to be blunt, will go the extra mile for you. Oh, they'll bone this for you, they'll mince that for you. No, any butcher sort of looks at me a bit askance and says, no, we can't do that. Can you order me this thing in? No, we can't order things in. What world is this? I think if you come from the chef land, you literally know the butcher and he'll bring the stuff to your door. But for a lowly home cook like me, I've never managed to find a butcher who can do these kind of bespoke requests. So, if you start at sweetbreads at one end, what can you picture at the very other end of the scale? Tofu. I know. Tofu has got that firm texture that will crisp up when fried and is then going to absorb other flavours. Is it going to be meaty? Not really, but I think it's going to do the textural job that we need from sweetbreads. I'm not going to pretend they are the same at all. I just need something that's going to take that place. So let's get on with our stuffing. And speaking of substitutes, morel mushrooms, another one that features a lot in this recipe. Just too difficult. So I've just got some dried porcini, which are very, very readily available everywhere. Even my corner Tesco's sell it, which is where it came from. That's all fried off now. Pop that to one side. And so for a chicken mousse, add some chicken to a blender. Add an egg. We're going to add in the cream. Now to push through a sieve. It's an example of how underwritten this book is, because it now says, taste and adjust the seasoning. Obviously, this is raw chicken. So I wouldn't recommend it like that. I believe in a restaurant setting, you put a blob, and just dollop a little piece in boiling water just to poach it very quickly. But I am going to trust the system. It says to add enough of our previous mixture to bind, so that certainly looks bound. Right, that now sets in the fridge. And so on to our sauce. A couple more deviations. Marco calls for chicken legs, which he's probably got knocking about in the kitchen, but I happened to cook turkey yesterday, so I've got some turkey legs, which I think will be close enough. I'm going to add in some onions, garlic and mushroom. I'm not going to be too precious about this. It's all going to get passed through a sieve. So I've just roughly chopped the garlic, roughly chopped the onions, roughly chopped the mushrooms. Each sauce of Marco's that I've made has been excellent, so I'm looking forward to this one. Again, I'll have to make a few subs based on what I've got in the house. I'm going to deglaze that pan with some sherry vinegar. I don't have Madeira, but I have masala, which I quite like. So that's now really sticky, so we're going to add in the Marco Special. That's right. Nor stock pot, topped off with water. Okay, while that simmers, I'm going to make another garnish. That is roasted onions. Actually here, I'm going to use the roasted shallot method that we did over in the steak recipe, because that went really well. It's literally wrap up shallots, unpeeled, in foil with a little butter and salt, and roast them for 30 minutes. They just slide off the skin and they're beautiful and caramelised. So it's at about 15 or so minutes simmering. It's really complex. You've got the sweetness from the masala, all kinds of umami and savoury notes from the vegetables, but you've also got that sherry vinegar is still there, that first layer of deglazing we did, that sharpness. I'm just going to pass this off. This is a saucepan wrapped in muslin. Nice. There's a couple of final bits of seasoning to be done, but obviously we'll do that just at serving. This is served with Marco's basic mashed potato. His words, that's a kilo of potatoes diced, 8 grams of salt, 1 litre of water, and then we're going to blend it with this much butter and cream. That's quite a lot, but it's probably going to be pretty tasty. So, my trotters have had 2.5 hours, and obviously I've taken a little peek at it. I want to show you here what's going on. We've had loads of reduction, and in fact it's starting almost to burn, and it's ripped away from the knuckle as it's cooked. The skin has shrunk and we're just left poking out. So I think the presentation is going to be ruined, but I'm going to push on through because I've come this far. See what we look like on the plate, but I am not hopeful. Okay, well, I don't know how well it's going to go, but our poor misshapen trotter. Let's try and stuff it as best we can. Hopefully the foil parcel is going to keep it all intact. So remember our chicken mousse tofu is now completely cold. Yeah, so the skin has completely shrunk, making wrapping this just tricky. We'll wrap this just like a Wellington. Nice and tight. And some of you are probably saying, why didn't you just do, another one? And to be honest, I was actually exhausted after doing the one trotter, which sounds pretty pathetic, but You know, a skill you've not done before. It's hard that first time, isn't it? And, you know, if I did it again, maybe it'd be better. But there we are. This is going to poach, and then we are basically ready to plate. Let's go. Okay, this has had... My trotter's had 12 minutes. Marco says about 12 minutes. He absolutely was not intending anybody to make this. So, that's not looking too bad. Mousse has fallen out the back a bit, but we'll survive. Just warming my mashed potato through. I think I'm going to need to wallop him out that way. Some of our roasted shallots and a few dried porcini, taking the place of morels, and finally sauce. We had our share of failures, but I think it looks all right. But of course, how does it eat? So, is it tasty? Yes. Is it worth the 4 hours of cooking, including boning the trotter? No. It is a fussy 80s restaurant dish. It's showing off. It's definitely a restaurant piece because you're saying, oh look, here's the trotter, but it's not really the trotter, it's stuffed with a mousse instead. I know I haven't got the sweetbreads in there, but I can't imagine it's going to magically elevate it to the best thing I've ever eaten. Let's go around the elements. So I've got shallots and I've got mushrooms. The mash, I don't know why you would do mash in a food processor. It's a pain to clean, and just do mash the way you would always do mash, you know. Stick it on the hob, drain it, mash it with whatever condiments you want, salt, butter, milk, however you do it. You do mash however you want to. There's nothing special about doing mash like that. The sauce, excellent. As always, Marco is excellent with his sauces. He's really good with sauces. So if you had some chicken bones or a leftover chicken piece, or you cut the leg off a chicken before you roast it, fry that with onions and mushrooms, and then add some booze and some stock and let it reduce down, you're on to a winner. And I would definitely do that again. The trotter itself is fine. The skin is gelatinous, and you know it's not unpleasant to eat, but it's fine. I'm crying out for some crunch, if I'm honest, and I could see that working really well with a lovely slab of roast pork or pork belly. I'd enjoy that far more. I made this Marco Pierre White recipe, and all I got was this lousy video. This is the first thing I've eaten all day because I knew I was eating it. And I could tell from the flavours it would be incredibly rich, and it is, but that's a fussy restaurant dish for you, isn't it? And just like with his steak recipe, it's something definitely supposed to be made by Brigade, where they can make 10 kilos of mash, where they can make 4 litres of stock, and they can prep 100 pig trotters at once, and it scales up really well. Trying to do it at home, honestly, it's not worth the effort. If you're thinking about it, don't worry about it. To be fair to Marco, he says in the very opening lines of White Heat, you're buying White Heat because you want to cook to be a Michelin stars? Forget it, buy a saucepan. I warn you though, it's a jigsaw and there's 100 pieces missing. I'm glad to have done it, if only to say I have done it and that I never need to do it again. Should I try another one of Marco's recipes, or have I suffered enough? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.